Is that everybody who wants to participate in? Or do we have someone still trying to log in?
You're one.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
There's another person coming. She's like in the library.
How did they get that one crossed out? Somebody signed out?
No, I think it's because you have the.
Oh, it's just on the TV. It's not on my screen. And you know what? Oh, there's no sound? That doesn't sound right. I have to switch over the sound. Should be.
We also have pizza from the Immigrant Youth Advocates meeting if anybody is hungry and wants some pizza.
There we go. All right, is that everybody? That's everybody? It's fine. Okay, so the idea is to find out what misconceptions you might have about the applications process, and there's always rumors about things and just ideas that we have that may or may not be true. So let's see where you're at. First up, what is the most important factor when choosing an extracurricular activity? Is it the number of activities you can do, how attractive or great sounding they are, your personal interests and curiosities, or how much time they take up, so longevity? Okay, all right. That was an easy one. Next up, and yes, that is the right answer, your personal interests and curiosities. And we'll talk more about what matters in your extracurriculars. Hello. All right, this is a personal thing. How are you feeling about the college applications process? Stressed? Yeah, stressed beyond measure. It's overwhelming. It's doable, just need to get organized. Delegating can't deal with this, and my kid and I argue. Or we haven't started yet, it's early. Any option. I did a lot of the my kid and I argue part. Not started yet, so majority haven't started yet. But I like the optimism. There's no right answer, but they made me pick, so I picked one. But, okay, we haven't started yet. Which, I know you're in 10th grade. What grade are we talking for your teenager? 10th?
8th and 10th.
8th and 10th, okay. And then back here? Juniors, okay. And you came in, no, okay, yes. And then I know you're a junior, you have a freshman. What about yours? 9th, okay. And?
I have a junior.
Okay, you should be here. Cool. All right. Next up, when should you start thinking about college admissions? Is it the summer before senior year? This is a trick question. Is it the week before the deadline? Like some of my students did last week. The day before the deadline, or as soon as you start high school? Okay, as soon as you start high school, but we have a couple people who said the summer before senior year. No. And then the week before the that has to be a teenager. I'm hoping that's a teenager. But yes, my teenagers did wait until last week for the November 1st deadline. Okay, how many AP classes should you take? As many as possible. None. It depends on your interest in the universities you're applying to. 3 to 5 is a good range. And this is a trick question. There could be 2 possible answers. So, 50-50. Okay, as many as possible. Actually, crazy enough, I've had students who've had 11 APs.
I'm gonna top that.
Oh, was that you?
I mean, we're gonna top that. Yeah. Are you gonna be? I don't know. I think I have to.
Okay.
No, because I have 9.
No, you probably have to go there because you took CSP.
All right. How many extracurriculars should you list on the application itself? As many as possible, 5 to 10, 2 to 3, or it depends on the college you're applying to. This is for everybody who's trying to do a lot and has a packed schedule, only to then get to the application and realize, oh snap, I did a little too much and there's no space for any of this. 5 to 10, as many as possible. So here's the thing, on the application itself, there are only 10 slots, okay? For anyone else who has anything more than that genuinely counts, and we're gonna talk about what genuinely counts, but that genuinely counts, I highly recommend creating a resume and then attaching it as an optional resume part of your application. Okay, because some universities will allow that optional resume attachment and some don't care. They won't ask you about it. So 10 is the max they'll let you put in there. Who feels like they're already behind? There's no right answer on this one. They made me pick, so I think I picked something. But it's a common thing I hear from families is, are we doing enough? Are we already falling behind? Everybody else seems to be doing everything. Okay, cool. Most people feel like they're on the right track. And I believe there is one last question. Yes. When do grades actually start to matter? 9th grade, 10th grade, junior year, and it can't be senior year, right? Okay, that was a fast response. 9th grade is the right answer. Basically, your high school transcript goes to universities, and if you mess up your grades in 9th grade, then that's gonna have a ripple effect because your GPA starts getting calculated the moment you enter high school. So I have had students who came to me as seniors because they needed help with their college list or their essays or whatever else, and then we sort of have to rearrange their college list, and unfortunately some of the programs that they liked, they can't apply into because they bombed a honors bio class in 9th grade, and they got a D, and then that had a ripple effect into 10th grade and 11th grade, especially if you're not taking as many honors or AP classes because that doesn't balance out your GPA, right? AP and honors weigh a little more, but if you're taking more standard classes, then your GPA is harder to increase. All right, let's get to the actual presentation now. So, do we want to see who's on the podium? Neon places third. And for the silver, we have
Yay!
Asma and our gold medalist, Anna. Guys, thank you for indulging me. It's been a while since I've done this in person. I'm so used to, as I was telling Carrie earlier, is we're so used to the Zoom presentations where I'm just seeing a black box in front of me. And the black box means I have no idea what your reactions are whatsoever. If you think this is lame, if you think it's funny, no idea. And now I'm learning to read a room again. But welcome to the college applications process timeline, what to do and when. I'm Priyanka. And just a quick background before we get to the real stuff you're here for. I have been doing this for over 10 years, and I've basically been helping families start from scratch, ground zero, don't have a college list, haven't done anything with standardized testing, forget the essays, that's coming up down the line. All of that for about a decade at this point. And that's students who want to go to state universities and stay local, that's students who want to go international, that's students who want to go to universities that are, let's say, a state or small liberal arts, all the way to like Northeastern and Georgetown and so on. So we've played every game there is to play at this point, and therefore if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I do have timelines for you, but I have been told that they can be overwhelming at first glance. So what I'm gonna do is first go through the presentation, and that way when you're familiar with the timeline, it's easier to look at a graphic that has like size 10 font because that's all I could fit on there, and then it won't be as overwhelming. So today's main topics, we're going to talk about what do colleges actually care about, so the components. Then we'll dive into the timeline by grade from 9th through 11th grade at minimum. Then course selection and extracurriculars, because at this point that is the most important part, particularly for all the 9th and 10th graders. 11th graders, those matter for you as well, along with college searches. So you have to actually create your criteria. And we might skip over the PSATs because I want to spend a little more time on the timeline, particularly because we have a couple more juniors here. So there are certain components you need to know about standardized testing, as well as what your summer should look like, and college tours and all of that. So that's kind of why I also ask what grades we have in the room so that I can basically cut, edit, tailor as needed. First up, coursework. So I have this divided into a nice quadrant. That's not how colleges look at it. It's not even. It varies by university. Some universities don't care about that whole personal side, or the other side, they care only about coursework, SATs, and like your college essay extracurriculars thing, right? They don't care about the recommendations. More common with the large state universities because they're getting in so many applications. They don't have the bandwidth to go through everyone's recommendations and also go in through do interviews of any kind, and they really don't bother with demonstrated interest. So in that case, it might be split into thirds if you're looking at a state university. Okay. Private universities, it could vary, because if you're applying into the arts, then all of a sudden this is no longer 25%, this could be like 50%, because your portfolio matters, art, music, film, whatever it might be. So it varies, but for our sake, I just left it as an equal division. Now that that's out of the way, first up, coursework. That is the most important part of your entire college application. Why? College is school. And they want to know from a business standpoint, because we always have to remember that a university is a business. Yes, we're excited to go to college. You want your teenager to go into college and have the college experience, live in the dorm, have the food, meet the roommates that they're going to have friends for life type of thing. I say that because I don't keep in touch with anybody from my college, but we have the friends for life, that whole experience. But the thing is, from a business standpoint, a university is ultimately providing the service of an education with an experience, but education. They need to know that all the departments are going to stay running. They need to know that no one's going to drop out, or very few people are going to drop out, so they'll have that consistent tuition, board, and whatever it is for the 4 years. They need to know that all the departments, meaning whether it's business, whether it's liberal arts and sciences, whether it's the architecture or the engineering buildings, they're going to stay running. Okay? They have to keep every single bit and piece running. Now, what happens there? Well, your grades, if you're the type of student who has a lower GPA, you're indicating that maybe you're not going to follow through with the whole curriculum, that you might be likely to drop out, and therefore they have to look for a transfer student, but ultimately they risk having an empty seat somewhere midway through, right? So it's pretty much they're assessing their risk, and one of the ways they do that is looking at your GPA, because a good indicator of your future behavior is your past behavior. So sure, maybe you didn't do so well in 9th grade. Did you make up for it? For your transcripts, was there an upward trajectory in your grades, or are we still coasting? Did you drop? Ultimately, were you the type that maybe you went on Khan Academy, or you went on YouTube for videos, you went on Instagram to help you with math, because some of those Instagram people, amazing tricks with the math. Maybe that's what you did, right? But ultimately, you were one of those people who figured it out. So your GPA is important. Weighted, unweighted, on a scale of 100, it doesn't matter how your high school does it. I've seen all weird scales. At the end of the day, a university will take whatever you have and from your transcript, so just the flat out grades. This one is an A, this AP class is a C, whatever it might be, and they'll recalculate it to whatever they need it to be. Because every high school, even in Connecticut, think of how small Connecticut is. I can drive 2 hours and I'm through the state, roughly, right? I'm originally from Florida. You're still in Miami in about an hour and a half. So 2 hours through a small state, and even the same counties, the high schools have different measuring systems. Some only provide unweighted GPAs, which are the ones that don't care if you took an AP class and got a B on it, because a B is a B, right? So unweighted is out of 4.0. That's the scale they use. Weighted, I've seen weird things, but I'm gonna in general say it's out of 5.0. Okay, and that is the one that factors in the difficulty level of that course. So now getting a B in an AP class is better than getting a B in an honors class, which is better than getting a B in a standard class, because it was harder to get that B in the AP class, more tests, quizzes, grades, project, all of that involved. So far, so good. Yeah, what's up?
So, do the colleges weight the classes?
They'll usually do just a weighted GPA. But that's up to it depends on the college itself, because everybody does funky things. Some universities will say, okay, we're only going to take the core classes. So that pottery making class, or the jewelry design class, or your electives doesn't count. Okay? And some will say, no, we'll factor in everything and keep it fair for everybody that way. So it varies by university, and they will just redo that. So basically that's out of our hands. From our point of view and our control, aim for A's and B's. That's pretty much the easiest way to do it. It's just aim for A's and B's, of course, mostly A's. And within the GPA, like I said, they'll consider the APs, honors, dual enrollment, which in Connecticut we are partnered with UConn, so you'll have ECE, early college experience credits. That's our dual enrollment. Okay, So that's through the high school. Some dual enrollments, the students actually go physically into the universities or community colleges in the evenings and take classes that way. So every state, everywhere looks differently, but in Connecticut we have ECE credits. But that counts. And then if your high school does class rank, which does your high school do class rank? No. I think more and more high schools are doing away with it. If it doesn't, that's okay. That is not your problem. Okay? So if it's an institutional, which this is important to know, if there's something that is institutional, meaning, let's say International Baccalaureate Program, I don't believe it's offered here. Right? Okay. So it's not offered. Well, if we compare side-by-side applications of a student who took APs and somebody who passed the International Baccalaureate exam, which is, it's like APs on steroids, that was part of it. They're not equal. IB is gonna win out, right? But the thing is, that student who didn't have the IB program available, it's not their fault. So, to make things fair, and it's not just AP, IB, there are some high schools, I'll give you an example. In Reading, there's Joe Barlow High School. Now, at Barlow, 10th graders can't really take APs. They can take one AP, or two APs now. First, like 2 years ago, up until 2 years ago, there were none. Then they let computer science in, and then they let AP seminar in. So 2 APs are allowed. And then juniors and seniors can take APs. Now, compared to you guys, who are allowed to take APs, I believe, from 9th grade, well, put you guys side by side. You're obviously going to have more APs available because you were able to start earlier. So does that mean that that kid from Reading shouldn't get into that same school? Right? So to keep things fair, what happens is your guidance counselor, as a part of the recommendation, will also send in something called a school profile. And it's about a 2 to 5 page PDF that the high school designs with their vision statement, mission statement, just average GPAs, SAT scores, average SAT scores. Any kind of special education mottos that they might have, for example, if it's a Waldorf school versus a Catholic school and they have a Jesuit philosophy of learning, whatever it might be. And then they'll explain some of these things like, hey, by the way, AP's only allowed junior year onwards, right? Or, hey, this is this big in-school project that they work on. So that way, even if it's a school-based project, whatever it might be, like one of the high schools has like a junior writing portfolio. That's a school program. You don't know about it because it doesn't apply to your high school, even though we're in the same state, same area. But one of the high schools has a junior writing portfolio. It's an in-school project. Your guidance counselor will have that on the school profile, and that way if you want to put your score in as an honor and achievement, there's actually some kind of scale that a university has to compare to it. Does that make sense so far? So school profile's important, but you don't have to do anything about it. Class rank, if it's not available, that's okay, not your problem. Same thing goes with anything that's institutional. If there's a program that's not available for you from the high school, it's not your responsibility to go have to overly seek it out. Okay, so that was coursework. Then we have SAT, ACTs. SATs, ACTs, how many of you are still on that thinking, it's test optional? No one's on that boat? Okay, good. Because universities are moving back to test required. So there is no such thing. We never want to work under this test optional blanket. In fact, early October, we're in November now. Yeah, so this time last month, the government sent a memo out to the top 20% of the universities stating that, asking that they mandate the SATs and ACTs again. So last week, or the week before, it's like 10 days ago, Princeton is now back on the SAT wagon, or ACT, whichever you prefer, right? So we're going back to the pre-COVID requirements that the universities used to have, and test optional was always meant to be a temporary thing. Just as again, from a business standpoint, SAT is run by College Board. College Board makes $1 billion in revenue from these PSATs, SATs, AP exams. The SAT was never going to go anywhere. I know there were tons of articles about, will it disappear? Is it important enough? Here's the thing, it's not an intelligence exam. Neither one of these are intelligence exams, and you should never judge yourself based on the score you get. But they're also not going anywhere because there's too much money floating around. So we're gonna operate under the umbrella of plan to take the exams because the universities will ask for them, okay? Then maybe when senior year comes. So right now when I'm working with my seniors, and most of them are done at this stage, but the couple that are stragglers, when we're working and they have an SAT score on file, but now we can look at their list and say, okay, you know what? Maybe for that university that's test optional and you're a little short on it, you might not need to send your score in, it's okay, right? But that's a game we play in senior year when we have that college list in front of us and it's time to send the applications. It's not a game we play in 10th grade or in 11th grade. Back then, we work on making sure you have the SAT score you need. Does that track? So everybody needs a score. That's the conclusion. SAT or ACT. It doesn't matter which one. Any university that accepts one exam also accepts the other. It's rare case. I haven't come across it, but I'm putting a little caveat. It's rare case that you'll have a university that says we only want the SAT, we only want the ACT. Either or. Personal side. Extracurriculars we're going to dive into, so I'm just going to coast over that one for now. Honors and achievements. There's a section on the application for academic honors and achievements. Anything that's athletics related, or let's say the chess club, all of that goes into your activity section, so your extracurricular section, or on your resume. Okay, so it doesn't have to stay out, but that's just not the section to put it in. Honors, honor roll, any kind of honor society you're in, any kind of, let's say, literary award that you might have received, or the Connecticut, what is it? There's like a Yale Book Award or something. Anything of that sort, that all counts, okay? College essay and supplementals. So college essay counts, and then of course supplemental essays. Most families don't realize they exist. Does anyone know what a supplemental essay is? Yes? All right, what do we have here?
I think it's like colleges want essays saying like specifically why they're a university or something. It like depends on the university, I think. And it's like in addition to your like regular college.
Correct. Okay, so some universities, not all, are going to have additional writing pieces. So on top of this college essay, a university can have no supplemental, could have 1, could have 2, could have 3, could have 4. I've had students who've had 5 supplementals. And supplemental questions can be, why us? Like she just mentioned, why do you want to attend our university? For those, we're going a little off tangent, but I'm currently in that mindset because of my students. Don't keep it generic. Don't keep it generic. Don't tell me how pretty the campus is. Don't tell me how when you came on campus it felt like home. And yes, I've had many students try to tell me, oh man, I found my people. Great, don't write that on the essay yet. Okay, so don't keep it generic. Make sure you get to the specific programs, because again, we talked about this before. It's a business in the service of providing an education. You're going there for an education. Yes, you're gonna have fun. You'll have the social life, all of this. You're going there for an education. Talk about their academics. What is it appealing? Is it the exploratory program that, hey, I don't know what I want to do, but your vibe looks, the way you arrange this seems kind of cool? Is it a specific department that you're interested in? So why us? Expand upon an extracurricular activity. If you're planning to go to like University of Chicago, they let current UC students pick the supplementals for the incoming class. So you get some really funky ones. Like a cat burglar is not a cat. And this is a metonym. Give us an example of a metonym that exists and why it should continue to exist or why it shouldn't, or design one of your own. So first, I obviously have to Google metonyms because we need some more examples, except for the cat burglar is not a cat. And that's one of the 7 options. And they're all equally funky, and you get to pick which one of the 7 you want to do, which means you need to carve out time to write this. It's not something you BS. Okay? And then UPenn, I think, has what does page like 89 of your autobiography say? Back then, when that question came up and I was applying, I basically had to be like, I don't think I've lived long enough to do anything worth 89 pages at this point. So I don't know what that page of my autobiography looks like. But the point of this is ultimately to see how creative you are, get a gauge for what your vibe is, because yes, the university is a business, but it's also a mini city. It's trying to pull in all the different perceptions. It's trying to live up to the promises it's making to you. They promised you diversity. They promised you interesting conversations with interesting people. Well, now they have to pull those people in somehow, right? So creative questions actually help them figure out, oh, how do you think? What's important to you? Are you going to be able to find your people on campus, or are we not going to be the right fit for you? You'll be miserable here. Okay, so creative questions are important, but none of those can be BS'd. So that's supplemental essays, all right? everyone always talks about college essays and have we done those yet? But if you ever end up hiring anybody to help with the college essays, just note that it's also, you want somebody for the supplemental essay. It's a package deal. So just make sure you're aware of that and factoring that in. And then finally, of course, the miscellaneous. So we talked about counselor recommendations a bit with the school profile, and also they'll write a recommendation, but they'll usually ask you to fill out a brag sheet of some kind. And then teacher recommendations, interviews. Some universities have, some don't. So it's up to the student to stay on top of, is it an optional interview? Is it a required interview? Am I the one who has to follow up with them, or are they gonna come to me about it? And then demonstrated interest. We're not going to dive too much into the demonstrated interest, but I'll give you at least 3 ways you can demonstrate interest. Actually, I'll ask you, because I think we talked about this last time. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. Let's find out. What do you think demonstrated interest means?
Website.
If you go on their website, but they don't track that.
Oh, I've heard they do.
They do. There's a creepiness to it. Do you want to hear the creepiness?
Sure.
So they'll be sending you emails, and you guys, and you as well, Parker, you're probably receiving a lot of emails from colleges. Some of them will say, okay, well, did you click on any of the links embedded in the emails? And those will take you to the website. Then some of them will take it a step further. And they'll say, okay, well, how long did you spend on that website after you clicked on that link? So they basically, some, not all, will track not only did you click on the link, but also how long did you spend on the website after the fact. So website, if you click through the email. So yes, open your emails from universities if you're interested in those universities.
College visits, if you actually went to the tour.
Okay, college visits or even virtual info sessions. So you don't have to carve out time to actually physically visit the university.
When you click on it, like if it's a college, like can you like lie to them a little bit and be like, oh, I spent 2 hours on it?
2 hours on what?
Oh, they can track it. Oh, so they want us if you're honest.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're gonna check on the website thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're tracking you like Amazon does.
Oh.
Like, you know how Amazon randomly you're like, I'm looking for sneakers on Amazon, and then suddenly you're on some other different website and there's ads for sneakers. So universities are creepy like that too. They'll wait until you click on their website and then track your time. But social media is another one. Follow the universities on social media, like their posts every now and then. If you visit the university, take photos of yourself at there. Doesn't matter, buildings, look at the statue, because every university has the statue. And they also have this weird piece of art that's all metal and looks like French fries twisted together. They have all of that. Take photos and then randomly post like every 2-3 months and then tag the university. Okay, and even if you hated the college tour, just say, thank you so much for the experience. Okay, it was a rainy day, it had nothing to do with maybe the tour guide. Just thank you so much for the experience, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you could just say thank you for the experience. It was cool exploring Northeastern or something. And just tag the university. Some universities track that. Good? So those are, yes?
Put your social media information in your application?
You can, but you don't have to. So,
She doesn't have any, so.
great, that's
Yeah.
okay. Keep it that way. I've had students, I'm coming across the species who have never had social media accounts, and I want them to keep it that way. In that case, use the other demonstrated interest ways. You don't, and the universities will not tell you the methods that they track. So there's multiple different things, how often you email them and ask genuine questions, and not you, it has to be the teenagers emailing them. How often are they genuine questions as opposed to like stuff you could have found on the website but you didn't look hard enough. So genuine questions, interactions with the marketing reps that come to your high schools. Make sure you note down their names, because in the off season they're marketing reps, and in the busy season they're also your admissions officers, depending on the university. So make sure you're noting down their names. Okay, and that way when you get to the why us questions, if the university has a supplemental, you can say, well, Mark or Mr. Davidson came to present at my high school, and I remember him saying da-da-da-da about your co-op program. We were talking about that earlier, right? So about your co-op program, and you were able to you definitely showed you were interested because you went the extra step of noting down someone's name. Does that all track so far? Everyone's good? Okay. All right. So the very quick version of the timeline, because then we have a detailed version for juniors on the next slide, and then for seniors the slide after. So the quick version for the freshmen and sophomores. Right now, You're worried about your grades and your extracurricular activities. Okay, those are your major priorities. Now, sophomores, usually next semester, they start doing college tours. I recommend that simply because you have nothing to lose right now. You know there's nothing at stake. You know that no one's sending you off to college in the next few months. So emotionally, it's less stressful. Now, part of the way I organize these timelines, it's not that it has to be done absolutely right here, right now. I tend to organize them in terms of the emotional baggage that comes with this whole process as well. So one of the things that happens if you wait until junior year, particularly second semester, is that teenagers tend to now start thinking this, it's like feeling it. They're feeling it's real, that it's happening, their life is about to change, and they're excited, but they're also terrified because they're leaving home for the first time. So usually in that junior year, second semester, that's when the arguments will happen. That's when my team won't talk to me, or all we do is argue, or all my mom does is talk about college when I asked her what was for dinner, and I had a student tell me that too. Or avoidance, all of that usually starts up second semester of junior year. So in order to sort of reduce that, if you start touring earlier on, and especially even if you have a ninth grader, you're going out of town, let's say, especially the holidays are coming up, if you want to drive through a college campus, you don't even have to take a walk. If you want to drive through, so they start getting comfortable looking at it.
Can you just like go through any campus you want?
Yeah.
It's like a school you couldn't get into possibly?
Yeah.
Just see, okay.
Yeah, go to Princeton, take a tour. You can. You can schedule an official tour if you want to, or you can park in the visitors parking, just pay the meter, and then walk around on your own. And they have self-guided tours as well, so if you look for like the online stuff, you can find the self-guided info as well. Or go to the visitor center, they'll give you the info. So yes, any university, it doesn't matter if you're not planning to apply there, it doesn't matter if it's close to home and your teenager wants to go to the other coast, get them used to looking at the campuses when there's nothing to lose right now. Because that takes off that anxiety air, because now it's becoming familiar. So it's okay, now that's a big campus, that's too big for me, let's move on to the small one. Okay, I like the small liberal arts vibe, or I hate it. Everybody knows everybody, I don't like that. I want to meet new people every day. Whatever it is, they can prioritize the important part before all of the emotions catch up. Does that make sense? So college tours, again, there's no, yes, junior year, you can definitely tour, and universities, a lot of them for demonstrated interest will count junior year onwards, not sophomore year. But for the sake of everyone's sanity, sophomore is a good year to start, because there's, your teenager knows they have 2 more years at home. There's nothing happening immediately. Test prep, we're going to talk about essay supplementals. All right, let's go to the next one. Actually, before we go to the next one, let's talk about the grades thing, because let me see my cursor, which means I can't see it here. I'm trying to jump a few slides without doing that. We'll come back to these. I guess we'll do this manually. Okay. Course selection. So I have a student, story time. I have a student who, I met her when she was in 10th grade, and we started working on her stuff. And usually when we meet in 10th grade, we're doing very sporadic. It's not a consistent, we have to meet frequently because they have time. So we just need to make sure that they're directed in the right way. Now, when we first met, there's this very specific program that she wants to go into. And there are only a few universities about that life. So we figured, okay, well, when you're picking your classes for next year, number one, what are you interested in? And she wants to go into a speech therapy and communication disorders. She loves working with children. So when we were picking her classes, we picked the electives that sort of show that she's interested with working with children, but also for her to test out if she actually enjoys working with children, or if her part-time jobs are enough. So she took classes like early childhood development. So there's 2 parts to the story. So one is the academic, where she picked the classes like early childhood development. Okay, great, cool. And then the other classes we picked were mostly standard, with a couple of honors sprinkled in there, because the family was like set. We're not aiming for the top tier universities. I said, okay, well then, there's 2 different games we play. If you're aiming for the top tier university, we have to take a slightly upscale track in terms of the difficulty level of things you're doing. And then if you're aiming for the higher acceptance rate universities, then we have a little more flexibility and a little more sanity to your life. Okay? So I thought we were taking this approach, and they thought they were taking this approach. Then last summer, they went on a couple tours, in Boston. Do you guys see where this is going now? So they toured Boston College, Boston University, Northeastern. Now, again, we've picked the classes for junior year. We submitted everything. And then what happens? Well, we meet up at the beginning of the school year and they say, okay, well, she really likes Northeastern. And they have a great speech communication disorders program. And I was like, but we don't have any APs. We barely have any honors. Just so you know. Again, this is even way prior to even applications while we're still setting up the classes. But just so you know, we've already took ourselves out of the running. So do you see what happened? It's not a junior year game. It was started back in sophomore year. Actually, it usually starts back in 8th grade because sometimes the classes you take in 8th grade have an effect on what you can take in 9th grade, which then impact what you can take in 10th and so on. So now we're at this place where, okay, even though she's still early stages junior year, we've already had to be like, yeah, that's going to be a reach. That's going to be a super stretch, even though we thought we were going to be able to design this. Now, at that point, when we were picking the classes, if she'd said, hey, actually, I think this is the game I want to play. I want to have this ability to have this one reach school in here. Well, the classes we picked would have been a little bit more challenging. Okay, so when we're thinking of classes, there are a couple of things to note. Yes, it is very important to vary your coursework. But number one, make sure you have a healthy challenge. Don't take standard classes. I have one student for sure. Oh, and then last year also. Okay, so I've had a couple of students who take a lot of standard classes. And the thing about taking standard classes is that it doesn't really help you unless you've gotten straight A's throughout, which is a rare case scenario. It's not helping your GPA because you are going to end up lower than anybody else who's taken even like 3 honors classes total, right? So it's important that just to make sure that you're competitive, you actually do take a couple of honors classes. You don't have to take APs. Again, it depends on the game you want to play, but it's important that you figure out the game you want to play early on. Do you want to have it be able to apply to Northeastern or equivalent? Then you have a different game, and that's important to figure out 9th, 10th, definitely by 11th grade. Or if you want to play we're gonna chill, and that's okay too. But know the game you want to play. So make sure you have a healthy challenge. Now, for anyone who is, I'm not even gonna ask, but I'm just gonna give you the information. For anyone who is aiming for one of the top tier universities, minimum 3 to 5 APs is preferred. Okay, so if you're thinking Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Tufts, NYU, Northeastern, whatever else, 3 to 5 APs is a minimum. Or 5 APs. Now, that's first part. Second one, like I mentioned with the child development, make sure that you're exploring interest, career interest. Our high school education system is not, unless you go to a technical school or something, it's not designed to expose us to careers. Okay? We don't do internships. I know certain countries in Europe, they have internship programs where after the age of 16, they do 3-month rotations in various jobs. And therefore, when they go to university, they do know what it is they want to study. They don't have this option of waiting and deciding later. They just go right in running. We don't have that. So I had another student who said he was going to be a doctor. And actually, he's in med school now, which also goes to show you how long I've been doing this job. So let's not do that calculation. But he is in med school now. But back when we were working together and he was a junior and we were drilling on his SATs and everything, he said he wanted to be a doctor. Now, majority of the people who say they want to be doctors don't always want to be doctors. And it's not because they're not capable, it's simply because by that age, we don't know all the jobs that exist. We don't know all the medical professions that exist. We don't know that there's a physician's assistant, but there's also so many different types of nurses. There's flexibility in one. You give your youth to school and the doctor option and all of that. So we don't know. And sometimes you realize, actually, you don't even like blood. That was me. I thought I was going to be a doctor, and turns out I didn't really like people that much. So I went and thought I was going to be that pre-med person, but I found out later in the game because culture played a part in mine. But take the classes in high school if they're available. If you have an EMT class, take the class. Have your teenager do a couple of rotations with the local EMT, the volunteer EMTs, and then see if they actually like it. because sometimes studying something is very different from actually practicing it. Okay? And he did do that, and he turns out he did follow through. He went to Tufts, and then he ends up in, I believe it's Tufts Medical School too. So it worked out for that person. Okay? There's certain students who take the EMT course or whatever other class and realize, yeah, that's it. I know what I'm not doing. And they take the entrepreneurship class, or they take the coding class, whatever it might be. Try that out. And then finally, make sure you're also exploring your curiosities. So once you've checked the boxes of, hey, I've taken the APs, I have the honors, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what do I want to learn just for fun? Is there a Mad Men class? There's one of the high schools has a Mad Men class, so they explore all the dictators and all the extreme people in our leaders of history. So they explore their psychology. Yes.
The 3 to 5 AP classes, is that per year or total?
Total.
Total?
By the time you graduate high
I
school.
was gonna say, I don't know what,
Well, some of the students have done it, but
yeah.
at least 5 APs by the time you graduate. So, but again, I'm saying that as the minimum, but there are students. I had a student who went to Georgetown, had 11 APs from trouble. So always, like, let's set that as the minimum and then work our way up from there. So make sure, again, and I want to emphasize, you have to figure out the game you want to play if you're aiming for the top tier, or if you're not, and you're aiming for the stay sane, make sure I find the program that I absolutely love, no matter the university it is. You need to account for the expectations of the universities. Good? Any questions so far and anything else? Okay. And then we're gonna jump to extracurriculars. And you know what? We're gonna end up skipping a bit of the other stuff, but you'll still get exactly what you need out of this. Okay. Actually, go back. What counts as an extracurricular?
Sports, jobs.
Oh, whoa, what a coincidence. I think that's the first two in there. How did you? Okay, sports, jobs, what else?
Music clubs.
Music, student organizations, clubs, yeah. What else? Volunteering. Anything else? I know, y'all think you covered everything. Okay, so category number 1, hobbies. Even if you taught yourself. So I have had, not this past year, a couple years back, but I've had students who taught themselves how to play the guitar. One of them bought it off of a family friend. She never played an instrument, and she just taught herself on YouTube. Then another one bought it off of Facebook Marketplace, and she used to play the cello and wanted to now convert it over to a different instrument and see if she can transfer over, right? So that was a hobby. There's no official organization with it. I had another student who, he knew he wanted to work with computers, so one of the things we do when I'm working with students is we'll also try to see if we can poke into what career interest you might be into. So in his case, he was like, I want to work with computers, and I've built computers before. And I don't know if that's what I want to do, if I want to do software, if I want to do graphic design. And I was like, all right, cool. How about you download Photoshop, the free version, the 30-day trial. And then he took a Udemy course, and he taught himself Photoshop on his own. That's still a hobby, right? Not officially affiliated with any organization. It's not with a school, not with a library, not with a club team of any kind, not with anybody. It was just something that they chose to do. I have another student who used to love baking, and that's what she enjoyed doing, is looking at recipes and then telling me about all the sweets that I didn't know existed. But then we were virtual, so she couldn't make them for me. I have a sweet tooth. That's evidenced by the number of times I keep looking at the chocolates in front of me. But she used to be baking. She used to be into baking. Okay, another student used to love making fudge. So another one loved reading. So it doesn't have to be that you're constantly keeping yourself going. It's that if you have an interest you want to explore. Some students they have I think, what was it called, a chapbook, where it's a poetry. So some students wrote poetry on their own, and they wanted to publish their own chapbook. That's okay. All right, everything that you can do outside of the classroom counts. And for family responsibilities, there is a caveat in there. No, your chores do not count as family responsibilities. Those are basic necessities. This family responsibilities is if you're spending 4 or more hours helping your family out in some way. Maybe that's taking care of an elder relative, or that's maybe you're home to get your younger siblings off the school bus because both your parents are working. So those count, right? I had a student who had to be home certain number of times per week because they have their grandmother living with them. Grandmother has Alzheimer's. So mom is at work, dad is at work, student came home. One day she found her grandmother was missing. And she went for a walk and that turned into a whole thing, right? But that's a family responsibility. So those also count. All right? Now, a couple of things when you are planning your extracurriculars, because one of the things we tend to do is we're gonna do everything because that's what looks good for college. And if I had to count for the number of seniors who've been like, I joined this club, but I don't do anything, but I just wanted to be able to write it on my college application because it looks good. Here are 3 things universities actually care about when it comes to your extracurriculars. Number 1, how long have you been doing this? Longevity. Now, does that mean that you've been playing piano? And I've had a student who played the piano since 4th grade, and high school, they played until about 10th grade, then wanted to quit. But parents were like, no, keep going, this looks good for college. And all I said was, okay, if you quit, you're allowed to quit, but do you have something that covers the other 2 points, which is number 2, depth. So it's not enough that you do the activity. Out of 10 activities, pick 1 or 2 that you want to deep dive into. You don't have to be a leader. You can if that is an option for you. Maybe a sports co-captain, captain, maybe the vice president, president, or one of the officers in a student organization. But it's not just about that. Ultimately, what universities want to know is, where did you show initiative? Where did you actually get out of your comfort zone, go do something that was weird and random and uncomfortable for you, and then what did you learn from it? How did you become more you? Okay, that might mean it could be in your job. And in your job, you have been doing this for a while, you might have gotten yelled at by different customers. And especially if you're a teenager and you've been yelled at. I had a student who worked at the local grocery store, and teenagers always say like, oh, I don't do anything, it's such a boring job. And of course I have to ask, because I ask this for anybody who works in public service industry, which is, have you been yelled at before, or what's the weirdest thing you've seen? But in the teenager's case, I was like, so what, have you been yelled at before? He's like, yeah, there was this one guy who yelled at me. And he's old enough to be my dad or something, and he yelled at me because of the prices of food. I can't do anything about the prices of food. And I was like, okay, great. So then what did you do in that situation? Did you end up blowing back up at him? And he said, well, no. I just had to say, yeah, I'm sorry, sir, but have a good day. And I said, okay, so for something that you think you didn't learn anything from, you learn how to keep your cool in a stressful situation. You're getting yelled at by somebody. You're not used to being yelled at by somebody that age unless it's your mom or your dad, somebody familiar, right? You just got yelled at by a stranger, and you kept your cool in that. You might have lost it in the staff room afterwards, but in front of that customer, you kept your cool, okay? So when we think about dive into showing initiative, that could mean taking your sport and turning it into a community service activity. So I have a student who plays soccer, just as an example, because some students are very athletic and they think, oh, but this is my one thing and I don't know what I can do. I don't have time, which is another thing with the athletics, is they're so intense and committed. There aren't enough hours in the day. I don't know how they live. Although I had a student who was mainlining 5-hour energies and she used to hide them under her bed. She told me it's a secret, and then I told her parents. Because her parents didn't know. I was like, this isn't healthy. I have to tell the parents. But either way, so she was heavily into her sports because she was a diver, and in the mornings by like 5 a.m. they're in the pool by 5 a.m. Okay, and then after school they're back in the pool again. So I get why she was doing what she was doing, but also it's not okay. Either way, so for the athletes, let's say, actually I'll just use her example. She did diving. No, I can't use her example because it doesn't connect to the sport. Let's go back. For my soccer student, what he's doing right now, and he did this last year, he was a sophomore. So once again, he's one of the sophomores I met, and then I told him, hey, look, this is what the universities want to see. Let's see if we can take what you're doing now and kind of turn it into something that gives back to the community. And I said, what if you had an equipment drive of some kind? He's like, I guess I could do a cleats drive. And then he just went all in on it. And he didn't make any flyers or anything because teenage boy. All he did was tell his soccer coach in school and all of his teammates there, and then his club team. He told everybody there, and then he put up just bins, not even massive bins, just the ones you see at Costco. He just put up bin here, bin there. And then 1 or 2 times he posted on social media. But then he went around, because he was more of a talker and not necessarily the type and advertise, but he went around and told people. And they ended up raising, I was shocked because, again, sophomore, not checking in frequently. They raised, by the first time I checked with them, they had 120 pairs of cleats. Then when we checked again, and the final count when they took over, which this was going to go over to Egypt at one of the orphanages, because it wasn't some complicated setup. It was because his friend was Egyptian and they were going there to visit family over the summer, and this was going to be taken with their luggage. Okay, just so we're clear, this wasn't like a teenager went and like set up this whole thing and it was massive. No, his friend was Egyptian. They were going to go over the summer, so we didn't have this massive like set up this thing. They end up with like 250 pairs of cleats, right? And that was his first time. So now they're like, oh, we could do something like this again because it was worth it. People participated. So that's one example of how a sport can be turned into service. I've had other students who've had equipment drives for their hockey, who was the other one? Basketball, but mostly it's been soccer players. And then I had basketball, but that's that part. Other things athletes have done, and again, I'm using athletes because I know a lot of students play sports, but it could be anything. Actually, I'll give you an example as a musician as well. So another example is taking that sport and then going over to a local, an elementary school in a not so great part of town that they may not have the resources, and then just joining an after school program and playing your favorite sport with the kids there so that you see the love of that sport, right? Or partnering with one of the organizations that works with autistic kids and playing the sport there. So you have options of turning your sport, still doing your sport, but now you're using it as service. Question? Oh, okay, sorry. And so that's one example, right? I had another student who played the piano. Actually, a West Hartford kid. And she ended up taking, once a month, she would go to a senior center and just, for about an hour or 2 hours, just play the piano there for fun. So she serenaded them. That's how we wrote it up in her extracurriculars. That's how she turned her activity into a service. Does that make sense? So it's not that you have to go start a nonprofit. It's not that you have to do something super massive. But the thing is, that shows initiative. That shows that you weren't just waiting around for somebody to start a club so that you could join. Or that you weren't a member who showed up occasionally, but just so you could write it in your college application. So that's depth. And then demonstrated impact. Demonstrated impact can be, yes, how many people did whatever you did impact, but also, how many people did you work with? What was that like? If you were in theater and you've been in run crew or something, or you were the stage manager, God, when I learned what stage managers do and how much they have to manage. So if you were a stage manager, how did you pull it together with all the different departments? Was there yelling? How did you address conflict? What happened when the stool that was supposed to be on the stage was not on stage when the scene started? And that was a real story too. What did you do? Right? So you learn a lot about keeping it cool. You learn a lot about conflict management. And of course, you had to get everybody on the same page. What was your communication skill? How did you do? So these are the 3 points. And that's why if you need to let go of the longevity, that's okay if you can make it up with the points 2 and 3. And this doesn't have to be for every single activity. In fact, I would say sophomore year, I would start. So freshman year, just explore. Explore what you like. Thanksgiving is coming up. Go volunteer at a food pantry with your parent. Christmas, there's a holiday drive, some kind of toy drive, or school supplies packing, and gifting. Participate in that. April comes around, there's a beach cleanup or a park cleanup or something. Participate in that. Or a riverside cleanup. Participate in that. Right? Explore. Join the various school organizations. A lot of 9th graders join just because their friends are joining, but then they realize this is my thing, this is not my thing. When you get to 10th grade, particularly when you get to next semester of 10th grade, so spring of 10th grade, you want to think about the 1 or 2 activities that you do want to take a step further, and then start laying the foundation for it. Okay, if it's a fun, let's say an equipment drive, okay, well, what do you have to do it? And again, don't overcomplicate it. My soccer kid just went in and told the coach, hey, this is what I'm doing. Okay, and then once he started seeing that people are interested in donating, then he set up the bins, because he's also not going to do more work than he has to. So that's how it works. All right, so those are the major components. Any questions? Okay. All right, let's go back to the timelines now with respect to everybody's time. I want to give you the major info you need. All you juniors, actually all you 10th graders, highly, highly, highly recommend you do your SAT prepping over the summer. This upcoming summer, before 11th grade, okay? That is the freest summer you're going to have as a part of your schedule. And I have the timeline out for you as well, but I want to want you to see this component before you get overwhelmed by that component. But make sure you do SAT prepping because these scores are valid for 5 years. Now what happens, and the mistake / lack of information given out to parents about the SAT, AZT thing is, yes, the scores are valid for 5 years. The state of Connecticut is one of the few states that's partnered with College Board to give one free SAT exam to all public school juniors. So your high schools do it. But that exam happens in either March or April, okay? The school board, the Connecticut State School Board, buys the exams and then leaves it up to the high school as to when to execute on it. Some schools pick a March date, some schools pick an April date, doesn't matter. But the thing is, a lot of people use that as their kickoff. But here's the thing. May, and I'm using SAT as an example, but apply it to ACT as well, whichever exam. AP exams are in May, and most juniors are usually taking at least one AP. AP exams are the first 2 weeks of May. The SAT is the first Saturday of May. Doesn't matter the date, it's the first Saturday of May. Okay, and that's set. AP exams have been the first 2 weeks of May for at least 15 years. 15 to 20 years. Okay, that hasn't changed. And SAT has been the first Saturday of May for about just as long. So now, what do you think your teenager is studying for? Especially when March is spring, or April is spring break. So they take that March exam, go over to spring break. The moment they come back, their AP teachers are now loading them up with work. And they're loading them up with work in preparation for this exam. A lot of the AP students end up taking their finals before the AP exam. Because after the AP exam's over, no student cares, right? So that last mock exam that students do in preparation for the real test, teachers will count that as their final exam grade. So they have more at stake at that point. They're not thinking about the SAT. June, finals or final projects. If you're an AP class or something, final projects of some kind, if your high school doesn't do finals. But again, and depending on how many snow days we've had, that also pushes but that's SAT is the first Saturday of May. By the way, SATs and ACTs, even if they're on the same month, those dates never collide. So if SATs are the first Saturdays of the month, the ACT will be the second or third Saturday of the month. So you can take both on the same month, not recommended, but you could. So your teenager, once again, not prioritizing all of that, not prioritizing testing, right? Other stuff happening. So PSAT and MSQT. We have two juniors. We have parent of a junior and then junior. Okay. So the thing about the PSAT / the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, you're competing against 50,000 students all across the country for a $2,500 scholarship, one-time payment. That is very much a large competition pool. There are other ways to get scholarships. So ultimately, just use that as a practice SAT, but don't stress about what the score ends up being, okay? Usually I wait until the deans are out of the room to say something like that, but don't stress over that exam, but take it seriously. Teenagers should still take it seriously. But here's the thing, if you do your test prep over here, and you signed up for, let's say, the August SAT or the September SAT, this ends up, you're already ready for the PSAT. Now that ends up being a practice exam. Does that make sense? So there's nothing, you're already ready for it, nothing to lose there. And then, ideally, I recommend finish testing by December, and treat that March or April exam as a bonus. Just, great, it's there, it's my third take if I need it. If not, I'll just go and show up and then take the exam, go to class after, and so on. Good? But that way, it's done. So ideally, the goal for junior year is see if you can finish your SATs or ACTs and get the score that you need. Now, yes?
Sorry, I just have a question because the
Yeah.
SAT is listed on all of the months. How many times are you suggesting that they take the SATs? Is it in the beginning of the year and then at the end?
So SATs, these are national offerings.
Okay.
So that's from a national standpoint. Those are the months that SATs are available, and those are the months that ACT is available, but that doesn't mean you should test every time. Now, I recommend ideally no more than 3 times, because what also tends to happen is students have spent so much time prepping that if they test more than 3 times or 4 times, the law of diminishing returns kicks in, and their scores end up going lower or they're stagnating. So it's almost better to do the big prep before your first exam. So now for all the current juniors who may not have started their test prep, my recommendation, start your test prep now. take a mock exam. You can go to princetonreview.com or check out any local test prep company. A lot of them have marketing. They'll market on, just have free SATs or free ACTs as a marketing tool. Just take it, okay? You don't have to sign up for their services or anything. Just take the exam. And if you do the Princeton Review, then they'll have online, so you can just do it from home. And it's digital. They have a similar app to what College Board uses, so it is a very real, you can take a free SAT and a free ACT. So check that, see how you do, and then start your prep. And that way, yes, you'll be taking the March exam or the April exam, but by then you've done the heavy lifting. You've figured out what knowledge gaps you have. If you're doing a prep course or working with a tutor, they've probably had you take multiple mock exams. So that SAT is not the first time you're seeing the actual exam. Does that make sense? And be ready, the first time you take the official test, you may not get the score you want. That's common. There's nerves kicking in, everything. So even if your mock exam says, oh, I'm getting a 1500 out of 1600, like Ivy League category, and then you walk out with a 1300, that's normal. Take the test again. And chances are, your second time, you'll end up closer to whatever your mock exam scores were. Good? Question? Then senior year. I know it's a lot of pretty colors. Focus on the pretty colors. Don't look at everything I say. Otherwise, it's too much. So here's what's happening. For all of you juniors, your summer, if you plan this right, do all your writing over the summer. Your college essays, your supplementals, applications open August 1st. You could get majority of your resume writing, college essay, everything done over the summer. In fact, that's what a lot of my students did. And for at least one of them, we submitted by September 15th. Everything done by September 15th, right? For the others, it was October 15th, mid-October, and everybody just was done while others hadn't started yet. But the thing is, there are advantages to applying early for early action. That's the not binding one. There are many advantages to applying early action. Early decision is binding. If that's not, it wasn't my game when I applied. It doesn't have to be everybody's thing. But there are higher chances of acceptance if you apply early action or early decision. So be ready for that. Okay, and the thing is, if we're talking about the emotional journey on this, then you reduce your anxiety by getting everything done. It's a short return window, so you'll find out your decisions usually by mid-December, right? As opposed to all year, you might have a January deadlines that you're going for, and then you wait until March or April to find out where you're going. You're stretching your entire anxiety and panic out for the entire senior year, as opposed to find out early. Anyone who finds out early action, you don't have to commit until May 1st anyway. So you're not bound to the university unless you did ED. So you still have the luxury of time. You have the luxury of visiting the university again if you realize, hey, these 3 universities are offering me the most money. I forgot what they look like. The tour was a while ago, or I never did a tour. Let's go check them out now. Right? So that's basically how my students and I are approaching it. And that way, if there are any optional interviews, you have time to sign up for those. You have time to make sure all the facts that's not relevant right now, but any financial aid forms, October 1st is the open date. So ideally you want to get your first round done just in the first 2 weeks of that. You won't find out until March what the government is going to give you, but these forms also go to the universities. So universities will know what they want to give you for that early cycle. Good? So only advantages if you apply early. And it's another way of showing demonstrated interest. Any questions on anything? No? We're okay? All right. In that case, don't worry. Once I find I found my cursor. I think I found my cursor. Why is this
I have a question.
Yes.
When do you recommend taking a prep course? So
You have a 9th grader. The summer between 10th and 11th.
Okay,
That summer. So right here. Ultimately, the heavy duty prep that you want to do, if you're a 10th grader, you want to do anything you need to over the summer. And SAT, the highest math it goes to is Algebra 2. For ACT, the highest math it goes to is pre-calculus. So if that's one of the ways you want to filter, just, oh, we're not in pre-calculus yet, don't know the content, then that's another way you can filter and say ACT's out. We're just going to focus on SAT instead. Any other questions? We have timeline stuff, we have all these components.
What you said about the algebra 2, what was it?
Yeah. SAT, the highest math SAT has is Algebra 2.
Oh,
And the highest math that ACT has is pre-calculus. So you need more of a math foundation for.
Why did the PSAT give me like calculus and stuff then?
I have no
Right.
idea.
I'll just give you everything on PSAT.
No, it should only give you Algebra 2 stuff. Are you sure it was calculus?
No, it's giving me like pre-calc and stuff. Yeah, it's just
Was it giving you pre-calc or was it giving you the end of geometry with the SOHCAHTOA stuff?
Yeah, it was trig.
I don't know.
It was trig, right? So the
I have no
trig is
idea.
going to have there's going to be trig, but that trig is just the SOHCAHTOA you learned at the end of geometry for the most part. It's not, but then if you do pre-calculus, you'll need to know actual trig. You'll need to know law of sines, law of cosines, Pythagorean identities, all of that. Plus matrices, vector. Yeah, someone's happy. Matrices, vectors, all of that as well. So differences between the two exam. SAT wants you to go deeper into the few concepts it's asking you. So you could have one SAT problem, but it requires 3 different concepts, one from geometry, one from algebra 2, all weave together to solve this problem. ACT will just flat out ask you, hey, based on the law of sines, what is the sign of da-da-da? So you just have to know the direct answer, which means you still need to know that concept in the first place. Good, good, good. Okay, yes.
Is ACT science too?
Oh, no, not anymore. So it's optional science now.
Oh, wait, how does it work?
So actually I just did a presentation on SAT versus ACT yesterday. And what happens is ACT is going to have the 3 sections, English, so that's grammar. Most students don't do so well on the grammar. Parents, if you want to take a guess on why, Grammarly, autocorrect, right? Everything's online, so spell check on everything. They don't have to handwrite things, so a lot of the basic spelling is also missing. I've had students who spelled quickly with a W, and particularly with a K. Back when we were working on SAT essays. But then when they submit online assignments, it's flawless. Because, right? So they take a hit on the grammar section because a lot of our schools no longer really teach the grammar principles anymore, and they don't reiterate them after elementary school or some parts of middle school. But that's the easiest section to improve upon. So 14 rules of grammar they need to know, noun, pronoun, adjective, all of those that, again, parents and my millennial people consider basics, but apparently not anymore. So grammar, or English, then we have the math, and then we have the reading section. And that's what counts as the official ACT. And then that's gonna take you 2 hours and 5 minutes of testing. That's test time, not breaks, not proctoring time. So let's say 2.5 hours for padding, right? Then you can add on the optional science section. Usually if you wanna go into a STEM field or something, you're welcome to do it that way. But again, best way to show you wanna go into STEM is to take the AP classes that go with it. But let's say you wanna take that, you wanna add that on, that's gonna be an additional 40 minutes, I believe, for the science section, right? And then ACT also has an optional essay, if you want to. And rare is the university that's asking for the essay, because SAT ditched everything over COVID. And then they reformatted their entire exam, so now it's an adaptive exam. Has everybody heard of this? Everyone's familiar with the adaptive approach? No? Okay. So here's what happened with the SAT. So that's ACT. Are we clear? Perfect score for, let me actually give you some numbers so you have an idea since I mentioned this. ACT, the lowest score you can get is a 1. Okay, that's just, you wrote your name. Then national average is from 19 to 21. So out of the third, that's the standard, that's most students falling in that category. Perfect score is a 36. Okay, now if you're aiming for the Ivy Leagues or equivalent, then you want a 32 or above. Okay, if you want to open just a lot of doors for yourself, then a 26, 27 or above. Okay, so national standard is once again 19 to 21. I recommend going for about a 26, 27 or above. That opens a lot of merit-based scholarship options for you from the university. It lets you, it just makes you a stronger candidate for some of the universities, and especially if you want to go into a 5-year bachelor-master's program, that sort of thing. SAT. So SAT structure-wise, we have 4 sections, 2 reading and 2 math. The first of each section, first of reading, first of math, everyone's going to have the same section, roughly. They'll change up the questions to prevent cheating, but roughly equal difficulty, same types of questions. The second section will depend on your performance in the first section. Okay, if you think the second section is harder, you did pretty well on the first section. If you think the second section is easier, you capped yourself somewhere. You messed up on the first section, which means your score is only going to go so high. Maybe it's about 600, right? But you can't cross that mark even if you get perfect on the second section. So you didn't do so well in the first section, therefore you think the second section is easy for either one, math or reading. Does that make sense? So SAT is called the adaptive exam. They'll have the easy section or the harder second section. And you'll pretty much have an idea of how you did, depending on what you think about the second section. But that's for scoring. 400 is the equivalent of writing your name. Okay, you wrote your name, great, because math and reading are going to be each out of 800. They add them together and you get the 1600, which is the perfect score. Now, if you want, once again, Ivy Leagues are equivalent, 1450 and above is the target score you're looking for. Okay, 1450 and above. If you want to open a lot of doors for yourself, 1300 and above. 1300, 1350 would open a lot of merit-based doors, admissions, just applying to the university, especially if you have a slightly lower GPA or lower GPA than what the university wants. You can save your butt by doing the SAT, ACT, and getting a higher score. Okay, and keep in mind, GPAs take 3 years to make. SAT scores, ACTs are like 3-hour exams. So you don't, if you do poorly one time, practice and get yourself back up there. Good? Any questions on anything?
Should they take both?
No. Go to, again, I'm going to refer you back to the Princeton Review just because that's the easy at-home online. Now that you know what good scores are, now that you know what the national averages are, national average for SAT is between a 1050, although it got lower. Now it's like a 1030 or 1024, but 1030, let's say. But usually it's between a 1050 to a 1070. Okay, so now I recommend going on, let's say, PrincetonReview.com and doing free SAT. Just Google Princeton Review, free SAT, Princeton Review, free ACT, and you create an account. They'll email you, you can unsubscribe after. But take both. Prep for the exam you do better on. Because they're both still different. Like I mentioned with the math content, you have more ground to cover with one. Is your teen ready for that? Then, at the same time, are they strong readers? Do they have a strong vocab? Basically, figure out what works best for your teen, but start there. Then prep for one exam, because timing is different for each. Content is different. So don't overwhelm by trying to do perfect on both exams, because they still have their grades and extracurriculars to manage. Good? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Somebody had something? No? All right. In that case, I always like to end my presentation with just your next steps. One, start your college search, particularly if you're in 10th grade, then at least have an idea of what the top most competitive university you want to apply to is, okay? Because that way, you know what game you need to play. So what is your topmost, and even if you think that it might be a top tier university, leave it on the list right now and play that game. You're welcome to change your mind later, it only plays in your favor, but if you start low and try to go high, that's so much harder. So start your college search, it takes time, the earlier you start, the better. Then conduct virtual tours at minimum. A lot of universities are just gonna offer that. Ever since COVID, a lot of universities that didn't have it before developed it. And then take the free SAT, ACT, like I mentioned. Princeton Review is a good one. They have PDFs of SATs on the College Board website, but that's a PDF. It's not running in that software that I was talking about. And the other option is every month I send out a newsletter that breaks down by grade what your priorities are, and I'll include lists for I'll include the links that you need, whether it's, so I sent out the one for November today, running a little late, but I sent out for November and I linked to the College Board resources, the practice SAT stuff, practice ACT stuff, because that is the priority at the moment. So if that's something of interest, we obviously 10th, 11th, and 12th grades are cut off, but that is also another option. So for anyone who's interested, that's available as well. So other than that, the main part, the one thought I want to leave you with is that this is doable. It's doable if you start planning early. When you plan early, you get the resources you need in terms of the opportunities that you can plan for, extracurriculars, grades, summer programs, whatever else, and you can manage the emotions. So start early and approach strategically. Thank you. Email contact info, that's right there. Oh, before anybody leaves, timelines. Now is the time. So 9th through 11th grade or 12th grade timelines with major dates. Oh yes, that's for seniors if they need a last minute rescue because they didn't start their essay.